little word association, when someone thinks of moving, I mean, as realtors, we think of moving as a happy event and people moving on, but still, most of our clients think of moving as going to be a stressful experience. I've got a lot of work to do. And that is magnified by about 50 times when you're a senior. So there on the left is Mrs. Smith. She lived in that house. She could have lived in that house for 30, 40, 50. We had a client that lived in the same house for 90 years. They was born there and, eventually moved out there. And when she looks at the things of moving, even though she would love the safety, love the socialization, love the meals, love every aspect of retirement home living, she sits in that house and I'm not sure how well these pictures come out and online here, but what's it full with? It's full of stuff, and it's just they're paralyzed by even thinking about making a move. So what slows us from making a decision? Denial is the number one. Here's a question for everybody out there. How many people feel their age? How many people look in the mirror and they think they're younger than they are? You know, and it's all of us do it. All of us do it. Is that we all think that we're 10 to 15, 20, some with people with big egos, 30 years younger than we are. But again, it's actually a proven phenomenon that does happen. So when someone goes into a retirement residence, and I've taken quite a few people on retirement residence tour, the first words out of the older person's mouth is, look at all the old people here. Because in their mind, they're not 85 years old. They're 65. So again, transitioning, bringing them back to reality is quite an art. There's been studies. This is just one study they did at Queen's University, but if you Google people thinking they're younger, it's a proven fact is that our minds do not keep up with our body. And again, in this study, they thought they were 20 years younger. Some people felt that they were 17 again. Again, though, see yourselves. I'm not sure again how you can see how well you see these pictures, but there's an older gentleman looking in the mirror and he sees it when he was a vibrant fireman. You know, we have a lady looking out the window there, and she remembers when she was a vital member of society, she was a nurse. So our minds take us back to what we used to be again. So how can I move forward when I'm always in the past? How we see our relationships. On the left is what's reality is the son is responsible for looking after his father. He may be doing caregiving, maybe looking after the house, doing all those things. But the father, in his mind, it's still a parent-son relationship. He feels that he's the guy in control. Again, it's tough for us to change those relationships. Other things that slows us down, and when you're dealing with older clients, this list of denial, lack of information, magnitude of the move, and fear is the things that you're going to have to overcome to move a client forward. And that's not just moving into a retirement residence. Maybe that's moving from the family home to a condominium, family moving to a bungalow. You're going to encounter the same thing. Denial, lack of information, magnitude of the move, and fear. Again, on the fear part is, society portrays selling the family home is this giving up independence. It's a weakness. How dare you sell your family home? You're giving up on life. Again, far from the truth. If you're going to help a senior move or someone they have to be able to answer the one question is they have to say, why do they want to leave? If that client doesn't know why they're making that move, they are not going to do anything, whether they're, again, moving into a bungalow, a condo, or a retirement residence. They have to say, understand why they're leaving. That client has to say, I'm moving because I need a little extra care. I'm going to enjoy them. I'm not eating well. I'm going to enjoy the meals. I need some company. So unless they can tell you why they're moving, most of the time they're just going to spin their wheels. And I guarantee you, everyone that's on this call has got an older client that phones up once a month or once every couple of months and says, I think I'm ready to go. I think I want a townhouse. And then the next month they go, I don't really need a townhouse. I don't want to go to a condo. And then they'll call up a couple months later and they go, I think I'm just going to stay at home. And as you're constantly touring them around looking at different products because they haven't answered that question. Why do I want to leave? Our minds, again, on that denial side, will think of many reasons. Many of my clients will think of any reason to stay in their family home. They're going to make those excuses. Oh, I don't mind cleaning those 4 bedrooms. I have a pool with a large garden. I keep that for when the family comes over. I had a client live in the city. She had a stunning property backing onto Humber River with this gorgeous pool. It was tiered, it was fixed, it was gardened, it was manicured, it was stunning. And I says, "Oh man, what a great pool." She was like 85 years old. And she says, "Yeah, it's for when the grandkids." And the daughter was over and then looks at the mother and says, "What are you talking about? The grandkids are 45 and 47. Like they're not coming over." But again, in her mind, she was reliving that past. Again, many things that will keep us in denial. It's tough for an older person to make a decision. Is that they have a constant, where do they get answers from? They have a constantly shrinking circle of influence, friends, aging professional network. Many of us made decisions talking to our people at our offices. What kind of car to buy? Where are you moving to? What are you doing when you retire to? When you retire, you lose those friendships. Your neighbors, you've got your best friends that you've been neighbors for 20, 30, 40 years. They start moving away. So your circle of influence shrinks. Many members are, member of clubs, whether it's the Masonic Lodge or it's the church or the Rotarians. Again, as they age and they can't participate as much, is they lose that circle of influence. Retiring professional network. If I haven't moved in 30 years, I probably don't have a realtor. I have a relationship. He's probably retired long ago. Many times their financial professionals have retired. Their lawyers have retired. Again, so how can I make a decision when I don't have, where do I get my information from? And again, we've talked about it all this session is as a realtor, where you could be that conduit to providing great information to your client. The magnitude of the process. Mrs. Smith hasn't moved 20, 30, 40 years. Where do I start? I was asked to speak at a retirement home in Scarborough, and they had 4 clients there, 4 elderly ladies that were thinking of moving in, but they just couldn't make a decision. And they asked me to come and talk to them, and we talked away. And as the conversation progressed, is that the one lady, she admitted that her husband was a professional photographer who had passed away, and her house was full of prints, and photos, and everything, and she didn't know what to do with them. So again, we had to break that into manageable pieces, and then she moved in. Another lady that was there, her husband, her son was a doctor, and her wife and his wife was a busy executive, and the daughter was another busy executive, and she just didn't want to bug them. They're so busy, they got busy lives. I don't want to bug them. So how could she start a move process when she had no one around her to give her help? So again, these are the situations you run into because they a long time, and it just becomes overwhelming for them. And again, as we all know, is that if you have so many unanswered questions, fear paralyzes them. How can they make a move forward when they don't have anyone to talk to? It's an overwhelming situation, and they're really in a state of denial about their current situation. So if you can alleviate all those by giving them good information and showing them how you can break it down into manageable pieces, you can move that client forward. How do you overcome fear? You got to make a plan. It's overwhelming to me, but if you think about it, you make a retirement plan, you make an investment plan, you make a vacation plan. Some people even make, pre-do their funeral plans, but who has a plan for their housing situation moving forward? I mean, you'll find that, and you probably found in your real estate careers, is most people don't do anything, and then a crisis hits, then everyone's panicking what to do with mom, and there's no plan in place. We don't know where she wants to go, what do we do with this stuff, all these things, So if we can help our clients create a plan to move forward, they might not move, they might not move today, but they're going to move in 4 months, 6 months, a year, and we've created that written plan for them. Again, take the time to make the notes, write it out for your client. Makes a point of distinction for you is that if every other realtor comes in and says all they want to do is give a price on the house and say, okay, your house is worth $4.3 million, and I'm going to market it because I'm the greatest realtor that ever lived. Well, that's great, but you haven't overcome the denial, the lack of information, the magnitude of the process. So you got to do those steps before you expound the virtues of being a great realtor. And sometimes it's as simple as asking the right questions. Um, again, we talk about the client's perception of their home is usually what it was in the past. I love my home because it's close to the high school. Well, your kids are 40 years old. I like this home because the neighbor is so great. Well, most of the neighbors have moved away. Again, we have to bring the client into reality. What is that house like for them today? Um, I'll just skip through a few things. So really, how do we bring the client back today? We just ask simple questions. We ask the client, and you ask these questions all the time, but again, I'm going to ask you to write it down. Ask the client what they liked about their present home. That means they have to bring it from the past to what is it today? What do they like about it today? And you'll find that, well, what do they like about it? And they start to think about it. There's a lot of things they just, that they can't think of. Well, it's just there. It's my home. And then we get them conversation, what do you dislike? They will start coming out. Well, it's a lot of work. The yard's a little big. The washer's in the basement. Oh, the stairs are beginning to bother me. So again, we have likes, dislikes. The key here, if again, a takeaway I'd suggest to everybody is ask them how many rooms they're currently using. And you do this exercise and just say, well, let's picture your day. So there's Mrs. Smith. She gets up. Where does she go? She goes to the bathroom, to the kitchen, makes her breakfast, sits and watch breakfast television or CP24, maybe gets up and walks around a little bit, sits down, goes back to the kitchen, goes back to the family room, maybe ventures outside, maybe not, and goes to bed. Out of that 3,000 square foot house she has, if you drew that in a circle, she was probably using 600 square feet of that house. Again, it brings it back to reality. She's not using the 12-person dining room. She's not using the living room that seats 20. She's using 3 rooms in that whole house. Again, it takes away, if we write this down, it takes away that objection. Oh, it's too small. Oh, how could I live in this environment? We get a lot of financial questions, especially around the retirement home sector, because when you start talking to an older client, that it's $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $8,000 a month. A lot of panic comes in. They're huge numbers, especially when Mr. Smith has worked all his life, and the biggest payment he ever had was his mortgage, which was $1,000 a month, and now you're asking him to about $5,000. So again, we do some simple exercises. It's a key exercise, whether you're moving someone into a condo or whether you're moving them into a retirement residence. How much does it cost to run your present home? So many people, they'll go, oh, the taxes are this, the heat, the hydro. Houses depreciate. They have to be fixed. You got to look back. What did I spend in the last 3 years on repairs and maintenance? What am I going to have to spend in the next 3 years? Again, bringing it back into reality. How do I have to update it? How do I upgrade for safety? Suddenly that paid for house becomes very expensive. A lot of clients spend a lot of their retirement savings just keeping that house in livable condition. And again, that fear of my house is paid for, I live there for free. Suddenly in this example, it's costing them $2,000 a month. I've done this exercise where the house is costing $30,000, $35,000 for a paid for house. Again, bring the client back to reality. If you're working with someone moving into a retirement residence, 2 things you'll hear, and I worry about running out of money, but the big one is they want to leave an estate to their family. And if I was paying $5,000 a month, I'm going to run out of money. I know I'm going to run out of money if I'm paying $6,000. Mentally, it just panic sets in about those 2 questions. I work with a lot of financial advisors that provide me very simple graphs and charts to help the client understand. In this scenario here, there we got Mr. Smith. He's 85 years old. He's worried about leaving an estate for his kid. Sells his house for $1.7 million. He nets out $1.5 million, and the retirement home costs $5,000 a month. Question: am I going to leave something for my kids, and can I afford to stay here? This is a simple example. I don't bring in savings. I don't bring anything. It's just living off the house. So actually that scenario, or Mr. Smith is looking at bringing in extra help, which is going to be 43,000 or 65,000. But the thing I wanted to show is just the chart here. So in a visual exercise, he can say that if I'm spending $60,000 a year on my retirement home and I'm getting 4% net return, and I guarantee you they'll look for it and they'll go 10 years out because they all figure that, everyone figures that, the 85 are gonna live to 95. I don't know, I just found that. So how much, they're gonna have a million, still gonna have just under 1.4 million in the bank if they last another 10 years. Jokingly, you can say when they're 120, they're gonna run out of money. But again, visually they can see, and I prepared this little chart for them. So again, they may be spending $60,000 a year for their retirement residence, but again, it's not impacting their estate as much as they think. Again, we look at physical well-being. We look at mental well-being. Again, this is answering the question, why do you want to go? Physically, I can't manage with my activities of daily living. The house, it really isn't a safe layout. There's no opportunities for socialization. There's no opportunities for mental stimulation. I ask my clients a simple question: how are you making out with housework, cooking, cleaning? I went to a friend of mine's house just over Christmas time, and his mom was the best baker in the world. They would always go over to the house, and she'd have a ton of Christmas baking. We didn't have Christmas baking this year when they went to his house. What was the problem? It's her back. She has a bad back, and she could no longer bend over to take things in and out of the oven. So she had to stop baking. Again, we wouldn't have noticed that unless it was Christmas time and there was no Christmas baking. So many kids or family members never notice that these things that are these situations that are deteriorating because they're not all there at the time. So we've seen can't lift the vacuum, can't carry the laundry downstairs, can't read the labels on cleaning products. We talked about that. Home safety is so important, but again, socialization is the key. We got to get our older adults mixing with other people, talking. So many older adults in this community, they sit in their house, and the only entertainment is when the kids come over, maybe on a Sunday, or they call once a week. It's not bad sometimes in the nicer months is where they can get out and maybe work in the garden a little bit or to go for a walk around the block. But in the wintertime, they are stuck in that house, and there's nothing to do. There's no, I can't walk around. Even if I was living in a condo, I could walk up and down the halls. I could walk in the underground parking. I could get some exercise. I could socialization. And my other half jokes with me. I lived in a condo, and I'm the key. It's 4 floors, so I learn more about people in 4 floors than I care to imagine, because I have the ability to strike up a conversation. I watch the older people in my building. They congregate around the mail slots, and they start talking to each other. Again, that ability for socialization. So you've examined their current home, their finances, safety, socialization, activities of daily living. And this doesn't take a long time. It looks onerous and whatever, but you're asking just key questions and moving forward. And really, what can hold you back? You've answered all those questions. They should be move forward. What's the biggest thing that holds them back? And we all know the answer to this question is the stuff. If you don't have a way of getting rid of that stuff, they're not moving, because it is so overwhelming. I remember emptying my parents' house, and there was like 10 cases of mason jars in the basement. And I said, "Mom, you never canned anything in your lifetime?" She said, "Well, I was meant to." So we got stuff for everything. I have a friend of mine that has 5,000 hockey pucks. He's like 75 years old. He collected them all his life. What do we do with this stuff? And again, as a realtor, you have to have the solution to that. Dining rooms. There's no one buying dining rooms anymore, and the market for china plates and rural adult figurines is next to nil. So again, how do we transition those for the client? I do it. Anyways, there's great companies out there that will do all the downsizing. They will get rid of the stuff for you. If you're doing it on your own as a realtor, I just break it up into 4 categories: the stuff they're taking with them, family treasure stuff that they're going to give to their friends and their kids and their loved ones, consignment stuff, or the charity donation stuff. Most of it, unfortunately, is junk stuff. So again, what I've done is I've made it easy for my clients to make that decision. I've given them information, I've minimized the magnitude of the process, I've alleviated the fear, and then they could move forward.